How are you doing this afternoon?
I am good.
Good. Um,
Not quite as
well, I
crazy.
know you as Lynn Cahoon.
Uh-huh.
Uh, you come to our local Smoking Guns Sisters in Crime meetings. But is that the name that you write under as a pen name, or is
It
that
is.
your?
No,
Okay.
that's my real name too. So,
Okay, great. Tell me about your writing and your
um,
writing journey, how you got started, and what you all you've been doing.
okay. Uh, I have notes. I made notes.
Okay, that's great because I have my notes as well.
Well, I guess the big thing is that turned me into a writer. I started writing when I was getting divorced and started taking classes in the MFA and trying to figure out if this was something I wanted to do because it was really expensive. And so I just kind of started thinking about what I wanted to be when I grew up. And then I met my husband and started playing darts, and I stopped going to classes and, you know, just kind of put that dream away. And so
Mhm.
fast forward to 2007, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So that gives you a lot of time to think about your choices and think about
Yes,
your
it
life
does. It does.
and where you want to be. Um, so I worked on that, dealt with the breast cancer stuff, and I started writing. It was little things at first, it was essays, and I had always thought about writing. So I had all of these writer guidelines and all of these things, when I started writing, I had all of this prep work done. So then I just actually sat down at the table and started writing.
Okay.
Um, right, that's my husband's phone going off. Sorry about that.
That's okay. You may
So,
hear dogs barking because my neighbor puts his dog outside and it's a little corgi and it goes yip 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 yip. You may hear a lawnmower. Uh,
okay.
so there may be all sorts of background noises. We don't worry. We just keep going.
All righty. So then I wrote three different essays. I sold three different essays that year. And then I didn't sell anything for until 2010 again.
Hmm.
So there was a 5 year gap there. So I thought this was really easy, this writing thing. And then I realized it wasn't. But I got better and I kept writing and I kept submitting and I started writing some short stories, met a mentor. And in 2012, I sold my first book to a small digital first publisher, uh,
Hmm.
Crimson Romance. And so I sold a cowboy book that year. I sold a warlock book that year, and I sold a or a hot romance that year. So it was all about the romances, and it was all over the page because I didn't know a brand or anything like that.
Hmm.
Uh, the next year, I actually sold a 3 book cozy mystery series to a
Right.
publisher that I had been working with on a regional contest that I had headed up for my RWA chapter.
Hmm.
And she bought 3 books. We fast released them. And that first book hit the New York Times at the time had an ebook listing. And
Right. I
it hit,
remember that.
yeah, it hit the New York Times ebook listing in the top 10. And we were gold from there.
That's good. That's great.
Yeah, so Tourist Trap has been released since 2014,
Hmm.
and I'm just finishing up number 15 in the series.
Okay.
I had the next year they put me in print. So instead, Tourist Trap came out, it was considered digital first. So
Hmm.
it had a print component, but it wasn't like you could go to Barnes and Noble and pick it up. It
Right.
was POD, a lot like the self-publishers do now, the
Right.
POD on and
Hmm.
stuff. But we took it from there, and we actually did a print first, which was the Cat Latimer series.
Hmm.
It was Tourist Trap is set in California, on a little tourist town in California. Kat Latimer is set in snowy Colorado, just south of Denver. And she's a writer. She's a paranormal writer, and she runs a writer's retreat. So her
Right.
her hit, her hook. So every book is a new group of writers. So she does this writer's retreat once a month, and she got the house that she lost in a divorce when her ex-husband died. So that one went through 6 books, and then I took it back, and I'm self-publishing forward, just
Right.
self-published number 8 on that one. And then I had a Farm to Fork series. That's a complete series. It went through 6 books and 3 novellas. And then the publisher felt like it wasn't selling as much as they'd like. So we closed that one out. I have I have 2 new series. I have one that's print first, which is the Kitchen Witch series. And then also I have one that is digital first again. And that's the Survivors Book Club series. And that it just released in June. And it's all about a breast cancer survivor who leaves her job, moves, and buys a bookstore in Sedona. And so when in Sedona, she decides that she's going to have this Survivors Book Club, because that's really what got her through cancer, like it got me through cancer.
Right. Yes.
And she really she opens up this book club, and then one of her members disappears, and so they turn from a survivors book club to a sleuthers book club. So that's the twist on that story. So those are the
So your
ones.
first series was set in California. And you have this series of the survivors set in Arizona. And you have this other series set in Colorado.
Yep. And then I
Where
have
was
2
Go
series. I have 2 series set in Idaho.
Idaho.
Farm to Fork, that's the complete series. That's not having any more into it. And then also I have the Kitchen Witch is set in Idaho, so in the Sun Valley area.
So do you do anything east of the Mississippi?
I haven't yet, now that I live east of the Mississippi.
Oh, so you were living out west?
I was, yeah. I was born
okay.
and raised in Boise and Meridian. It's a little small, little town kind of south of Meridian. So I spent most of my years there, and then my husband moved me out to the St. Louis area, and we lived there for 16 years. And just now we've moved into Tennessee, which that's why my office still has boxes and everything in it, because I just got my desk today.
It's really, really hard to move. My sister has moved multiple times, and she has it down to a science, thank heavens, because when I had my major move from my hometown up here to East Tennessee, she was right in there helping me with everything. But it was months before I had every box emptied out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, we still have boxes in the garage now. We have moved from our first load. We came down and we put it in a storage unit that we found over in Sevierville. I want to say Sevierville, but it's Sevierville, or it's
Sevierville. Sevierville.
That one. It's that. I never say it right, but we had a storage center there, and then we live over almost to the North Carolina border, just out of Newport. So yeah. So
when you come to the meetings, you have a major drive when you come to the meetings, then, don't you?
Yeah, I haven't made one yet. I'm hoping, because the meetings are now switching over to Knoxville in October, which I can't make October, so maybe January, that I'll be able to attend sooner.
Right. So. Yeah. The Bearden meetings, which is where the Knoxville ones are, it's very easy to find. So that's good.
That's good.
Yeah. Now tell me about how you came up with all these 5 different series. How did you develop the first one and the next one and those?
The first one, I really, when I started this divorce thing back in the day, I went down to my sister's house, and she
Mhm.
lives in Santa Maria, which is just south of, just north of Santa Barbara and south of San Francisco.
Yeah.
And so I just kept doing all of these day drives for a week because she was
Mhm.
working, obviously. And so I just went down for a week and just did day drives, and I'd come back and dock in the evenings. So I found this little town, and I found this little house, and I wanted to buy the house because I was uprooting my life. I was changing everything. Everything was going to change.
Mhm.
I wasn't quite as brave as my person that I wrote about. So I'd had this picture of this house, and I'd kept it forever. And I just loved this little house. And so Jill, my protagonist, who she leaves a lawyer's job because she was in family law, and she leaves that job and she moves to this little town, this South Cove, and she becomes the bookstore slash coffee shop owner. So, and then of course someone dies, and she has to, it's her best friend. It's an older lady who talked her into this whole new adventure.
Mhm.
And so when Miss Emily dies, she decides she needs to find out why she died, because everybody's writing it off like it's she was just old, that
Mhm.
things happen when you're old. So that was the start of the California one, was because I love the area and I wanted that little house. And so if I'm not going to get it, my character's going to get it.
Isn't that interesting how we do that? We give things that we personally want to our main characters.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And
And then
give the things that we don't want to happen to our evil people.
to the villains or the dead people, the
Yes,
victims. Yeah.
exactly.
No, and then Colorado, we were actually, my husband and I were on our way back to Idaho. Yes. We're on our way. We're either going to Vegas or Idaho, and it was, I believe it was Idaho. We're on our way back, and he drives everywhere. He doesn't fly. So if we're going to Idaho from St. Louis, it's a 20-hour trip, so we have lots of time to talk. And
you get to see the scenery changing.
and you get to
Yeah.
see the scenery changing. So
Yes.
we were talking, and I started talking about what I wanted to do with this next series and this next book, and where should I set it and what should it be. And we were driving through Colorado, and I've always loved Colorado. I've never lived there, but I've always wanted to. So it's like, she'll live in Colorado because that's a different scenery. You're going to have the snow, you're going to have the mountains. She's going to be a big hiker, which I want to be. So yeah, so that's how that one came up. The two Idaho ones were set in Idaho because I love the area. The
Right.
Farm Fork was my little town that I grew up in, or most of my growing up time. And it's called River Vista, but that's not the name of the town. But everything else, you could, if you knew this area, you'd know what town it was, or it used to be.
Right.
And then the Kitchen Witch, I actually started. It was one of my first cozy mysteries that I started, and it didn't sell. And so I just kept it, in the drawer. And it was set in the Sun Valley area of Idaho, which is where all the stars go, so
Yes.
they can have big houses and stuff, and it's pretty, and it snows, and it's got the ski lifts. And I went there once as a senior in high school, and I was a member of FHA, which Future Homemakers of America.
Yes, I was at FHA.
I was a district officer, ran for
Ooh.
I know, ran for state, didn't get it. It was crazy, but we had state convention there one year, and I just fell in love with the little town because it almost looks Swedish, or what you would imagine Switzerland would look like. And beautiful, and it's just magical. So I set my cozy mystery there, and it's a magical cozy mystery. So she's a kitchen witch, so she goes around and she's learning her craft from her grandmother. So
How neat. How neat. Now, did you have your grandmother growing up
I did not, and maybe that's why all of mine have either an aunt or a grandma or, you know, those type of things, because I didn't. Father's my father died when I was 13 months, and I was the baby
Oh,
of 5. So
hmm.
my mother had her hands full. And then his mom and dad passed soon after he did.
Oh my.
So that side of the family, there wasn't a lot there.
Mhm.
And then my mother's mom and dad lived in South Dakota because they were transplants from South Dakota to Idaho. They had brought their new family, their new life and everything to
Mhm.
Idaho to start to do a dairy farm, actually.
Right.
And I was born on the dairy farm, but I don't remember it at all because we moved to town
Right.
then.
Yeah.
And my
And so
mother,
South Dakota is a long way from Idaho.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we did some trips back there, but yeah, I remember my grandmother, they had a Winnebago, and they would, back then that was rich, you know, because they had a Winnebago, and they brought it out, and every summer when she'd leave, she'd always say, "This is probably the last time I'll ever see you, so come give Grandma a hug." And it's like, oh, Grandma, I know, but she wasn't too far off. But
Uh,
but I didn't have that influence, and so my characters do, because I want them to. I want them to have that.
yeah. Yeah. So again, you're giving them
The
things
things
from your
that I
life
want,
or
yeah.
things that you're missing, yeah, from your life. Um, how do you go about your writing process when you come up with your original idea for a book or for a series? How do you go about developing that? And before you get your first pen paper, so to speak, and then how do you move from writing the story to the end of the story?
Okay. Um, Starting a story is a lot. I'm what you call a discovery writer or a pantser
Mhm.
writer. So I'm not
Mhm.
an outliner. I'm not one of those who has, you know, the Excel spreadsheet and everything listed out. It really hits me from an idea.
Mhm.
So like Tourist Trap was that house. How, who would move into that house and why? And
Right.
what's on with that house? And then the murder came, and then, you know, all of those things. Um, with Farm to Fork, I wanted her to be a restaurant owner. And so I started researching restaurants and Farm to Fork restaurants, because that was really big at the time. And
Mhm.
I'd go and I'd have fried green tomatoes everywhere, because my second book is Killer Green Tomatoes, you
Right.
know, and it just, I take, I really talk about writers being magpies, because we take an idea and then we collect it, and then we see something shiny over here and we grab that too, and then we see something over here, and then all of a sudden you have this book, or you have this book idea, and
Mhm.
it just from there I do a really sketchy outline.
Yeah.
It's got 24 chapters on it, because I know my cozy mysteries are 70,000 words. I write about
Right.
3,000 words a chapter. And this is stuff I know now that I didn't know then,
Right.
when I first started. But I set out that 24 chapters. I mark where 50% is. I mark where 25% is. I always have a dead body I always have the dead body by the end of chapter 3.
Right.
A
Mhm.
lot of people have the dead body by the end of page 3, but I think you need more into these people's lives to know why it's important to them that they solve this. So
Mhm.
with Tourist Trap is always like just coming home and sitting and talking to your friends. So, hey, Jill, what's going on? What's going on in your life? What's going on with Sadie? You know, because she was supposed to get married. So
Right.
it's all of these twists and turns of the community that are going on around her. And then that's like the backstory and the subplots and things that are important to develop the community, or to
Right.
develop the book or the characters, but aren't central to the murder. Or at the time, I don't think they're central to the murder.
Right.
Sometimes you get in the middle of that and go, oh, there it is.
It all connects.
it all connects, and I
The
didn't realize.
brain is wired somehow so that it will connect it for you.
Yeah,
Yes. Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of
And I like how you don't start immediately with the murders, because I don't start immediately with murders. I want the person to be known and to have a relationship investment into whoever is going to be murdered, so that they're driven
yeah.
not by, oh, look what I can do, I can solve a murder, but they're driven by a higher need, I
Mhm.
guess you would call it, to do the
Yeah.
solving. Yeah,
Yep,
I like
the
that.
relationship. You know,
Yes.
and sometimes, especially Jill, she's my nosy sleuther. She's the one that really wants to be involved in the sleuthing, and her
Hmm.
boyfriend, fiance keeps trying to pull her back from that. But my other ones, it's just the sleuthing comes because they have to do it, not because that's who they want to be or that's what they want to be. With Jill, it's what she wants to be, you
Right.
know,
Hmm.
around reading books and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
you know, she's nosy, she wants to find out things. And you know, that's who she is, but that's not who the rest of my characters are. You know,
Right.
they're very leave me alone, and I don't really want to be, you know, involved in a murder. But you know, since it was on my doorstep or in my bed and breakfast or one of my writing guests, you know, I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
So
Do you find it difficult to, since you have so many series, um, how many of your series are closed down and how many of them are currently going? So only one's closed down.
one's closed down.
So do
So
you have go ahead.
I have 4 currently going, plus I
Right.
just started another one. I know.
I
But this one,
got a handful.
5 in a close. One's a complete series, which means my publisher killed it. They did give me one more book so I could tie up all the loose ends, which I thought
Right.
that was nice of them. But this one that I just started, it's kind of a tie-in with Tourist Trap, but I wrote a short story for an anthology for one of the sync chapters a couple years
Mhm.
ago, and I fell in love with this character. And so I thought, okay, I'll take that short story, make it into 4 short stories, because I bought 4 covers. I bought
Right.
the covers before I even wrote well, I only have one of them written, so that tells you I've got 4 covers. But I'm planning on it being a novella series. So
Right.
4 novellas, and it'll be a complete series that way, and
Mhm.
it should be done by the end of next year. But it's a little bit of magic. It's a little, not magic, but she's psychic, so she's a medium.
Right.
She speaks to ghosts.
Right.
She's got that ghost, you've got some ghost visitors talking to
Mhm.
her and telling her things. And Harry is the guy who lives in her antique store she just bought.
Mhm.
And her family owns the fortune telling stories out of New Orleans. So, or fortune telling stores. So it's one family who was really Romanian. They came from
Mhm.
Romania, and they came all of this. And so her brother's running that empire, and he's trying to make it more legal and more respected. And so she's got the antique store, and she's going to be she wants to be a designer, and but then she's got this ghost thing that her grandmother gave her water for. And it's just fun to write. I mean, it's my second first person story, so it's all first person. It's all in Eddie's viewpoint, and
Mhm.
she really doesn't want this ghost thing. She wants to be a designer, and she wants to, you know, do pretty houses, which I
Right.
do pretty houses too. So
So those different niches that you have, like the kitchen witch or the one who wants to be the interior designer, that
Mhm.
helps you know which character you're writing. Does it help you put yourself into their perspective, their
It
voice?
Yeah, it does. It really helps. The the novella, I call them they're the medium series. It's the Haunted Life series is what it's called. And all of them are a medium fate, a medium homecoming, a medium gift, so it's all with the word medium in it.
Right.
Because I love that show. But with that series, I wrote the short story in third person, and it was fine, but it was distant. And so when I started changing it over to the novella and adding words to it, I sat down one day and said, I've got to rewrite this first person. I had half of it done, and I just changed it all to first person, and it just flowed.
Right.
And it's just one of those stories that you sit down and you play with, and it's fun to play with. And so that's why I'm writing it, because it's fun for me, and hopefully it's being well received. So I'm really enjoying that. So
Do you have how do you maintain your productivity? Do you have a number of word counts that you want to get done, or a scene per day, or how do you manage that?
since I've moved very hard,
Yeah.
one of the things that most of my books were written as I was also working full time. So I was doing 10,000 words a week, or aiming for 10,000 words a week. So 8 weeks for, a 70,000 word project. So I've always been, I need to hit this word count.
Right.
When I worked, sometimes it was I'd get up in the morning and I'd write, and then I'd write at break, and I'd write at lunchtime, and then I'd write. I mean, I wrote all the freaking time. If I wasn't working or I wasn't sleeping, I was usually writing. I didn't watch TV. I did nothing, because the writing came first.
Right.
Since I've retired in March, or retired to writing full time, I'll say, not really retired, because it's
no, it's not.
But since I retired, it's been, I have a daily word count. So I have a weekly count that I want to hit. So right now I just finished Tourist Trap 15 this morning before we talked.
Right.
And it's late, which I hate being late, but moved and whatever, all these things. So it's late, and so I pushed that one up to 15,000 words a week, which that's 3,000 words a day, 5 days a week, and you get 2 days off. Well, I never get 2 days off, because, well, I kind of do, but they're always Tuesday and Wednesday instead of Saturday, Sunday, because I'll get tired and I won't want to work. So yeah, I've always worked for a word from a word count. I think early in my career, I listened to Bob Meyer, who's he writes
military
stuff. That's what I want. Yeah. And he did that one romance with Jen Tolley, and so he's really smart. He's really a smart writer as far as productivity. So he came to our RWA meeting and did a thing on it's The Warrior Writer is the book, and I just ate it up, and it was just like boom, boom, boom. It hit my project management style, and always helped me think of things that way. I know what I'm writing this month. I know what I'm writing through March of next year right now. So each week what I'm going to write, and I'll have three or four, maybe 5. It might be 5 projects completed by then. And to me, that's what they are. They're projects. I mean, I love the writing. I love the books. I believe in the books. They're good books, but it's a project. And so it's like, okay, I'm here. This is when it's due. How do I get there? And usually I'm better at not missing deadlines, but I moved, and moving
a little bit. And that changes everything. That changes everything. It was so hard for me to get settled into my new space. I loved my new space. I just couldn't get settled into it. Do you ever find yourself, this is my problem, I hit a hard part of the story I will sit down to write, and the next thing I know, I'm up doing something else. Do you ever have that difficulty, and how do you overcome it?
It depends why I'm doing it.
Ah,
So if I'm just tired, I'll put it off and I'll do it tomorrow. So I'm really a morning writer. So if we have to go into town, which is 30 minutes away, and we have to do this, and we have to do that, and by the time we get home, it's 3:30. I can write, but I have osteoarthritis, and so sometimes I'm just too tired. And so days like that, I just say, see ya, and I do something else. And then if I wake up early or whatever, or can't sleep, I get into the writing. If it's because the book isn't going where I want it to go, or I don't know where it's going, because you can hit there, and especially if it's writing slow, I'll go back to the beginning and edit through, because that gives me my lines and where my lines are.
mhm.
Other thing I have done is gone through and say, what are the red herrings? What are the red herrings you've already set up? What are the clues she's found? And if
Right.
there's no red herrings and there's no clues, you know what's going on with your writing, because you haven't built those
You're not
foundations.
hitting your markers to make it the mystery.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
then then I have to go back in and
Mm.
figure out where I want to put things. I was writing a romance / mystery novella before Tourist Trap, and I got done with it and went, this is romantic suspense. This isn't mystery, this is romantic suspense.
Mhm.
So I read through it, I found my markers, I went through and I moved some and made sure that I had clue, red herring, so it was all set up. But sometimes you have to get the words out and get the story out before you know what's missing.
Do you ever get I get tired sometimes because I write historical fantasy, um, write historical mysteries. I write in two different eras for my historical mysteries. I write a totally different type of historical. I write two different types of historical fantasies. Do you ever find yourself genre hopping from
Oh,
one task?
oh, I mean, that's the way I started. I was the
Mhm.
girl who could never say no to a call out, Oh, they
Mhm.
want this. Okay, I'll write something and I'll send it here. Or, oh, they want that. I'll write something and send it there.
Mhm.
So that's why I had, a cowboy book, and I had the witchcraft book, and I had all of these things. So I kind of know what my niche is, though, now that I've been doing this 10 years, 10-ish years, a little bit more
Mhm.
than that. I'm not a hot writer. I don't like sex scenes. I'm
Mhm.
kind of like Nora Roberts. It's like tab A, slot B, and it's all the same to me. So,
Mhm.
and that's the part of the book that I skip over when I'm
When you're
reading.
reading. Yeah.
So it's just like this is not a good place for me to to put my money in as for my time to
Mhm.
write. I always said I could never write historical because I didn't want to do the research. So
Mhm.
Bob laughed at me and sent me a project that I couldn't turn down. That was the one that I just said was a romantic suspense. It was a historical set well, it was set in 1950, so it wasn't
Mhm.
truly historical, but there was I had to do some research on it,
Mhm.
much more about the lumber business in 1950. And I know a lot about the
Could you say that again?
oh, sorry, my watch is taken off. I've know a lot about the lumber business, and I know a lot about the post office in 1950, which was fairly modern. I mean, if you look at the post office today, especially maybe our smaller ones here in Tennessee, and the post office, in 1947, because I watched this whole video documentary on it,
Mhm.
um, they were surprisingly the same. Except we don't get mail twice a day, and they used to, you know.
Yeah, I know. And I think to myself, when it was much younger and the technology was not so good, we would mail something and we would get there the next day, the very next day. And now I might mail something to Knoxville and it takes it 5 days. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I'm in Marable. I mean,
Yeah.
I could have driven it over there and it would have gotten here faster.
Yeah.
According to my timer, our time is starting to wind down very rapidly. What do you think is your best tool that helps you? I've had people talk about having a whiteboard. I've had people talk about spreadsheets. Somebody talked about the ergonomic desk, which I'm envious of. What do you think is your best tool?
I'm thinking it's paper. I mean, I don't write in paper. I mean, when I sit down to write the story, it goes from brain to fingers to keyboard.
Right.
This longhand thing wouldn't work. But when I'm planning and I'm plotting and I'm trying to figure out what the story is, that notebook with the paper is my best friend. You know,
Right.
I have tried a whole bunch of different things. I mean, I've looked into Scriver with the little
Scrivener.
Scrivener,
Yeah.
And it's just like, why would I do all that work when I could just sit down and write the story? You know,
Right.
that's somebody said that they had a 27-page outline. One of my friends said, finally finished this 27-page outline. I thought, why? But actually, I said it. I was on Facebook and I said, oh my God, why? Why would you do that to yourself? And
It's like they've lost all curiosity in the story,
yeah,
and I have to have that.
because if you know what's happening, why would you even write it?
Yeah, I put myself into writer's block for like 3 months straight because I blocked out every scene. And I got in the soggy middle, of course, and couldn't go any further, even though I knew exactly what was going to happen. Writing one sentence after another was so boring.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until I had a minor character start talking to me and realized he needed to be a voice in the story. And then I finished the whole thing, which I had planned to be 90,000 words, and it wound up being like 110,000 words because I stuck him in there. But it became an exciting story again. I just trashed all my blocking, scene blocking, and all sorts of things like that. So I haven't really outlined since then. I know my story. I know where I want it to go, how I want it to get there, but I don't really know much more than that, having to do with the plot. I know my characters very well, though. I think that's important before you start.
I think you're right. I think it is.
Yeah. If you were going to give advice to somebody who's brand new starting to write, and I've got their first book in front of them and they're working through it, what would you tell them?
I tell them to write 2 more books because I think new writers get so stuck in making that first book perfect to, you know, oh, I'm going to throw in everything. I'm going to throw in the bath, you know, the tub and the, you know, the monkey and all of that. I think writing the book and figuring out who you are and then setting it aside and writing another book. And if you're going series, you're going to be so much farther ahead than anyone else if you write 3 books in your series, because you can just say, I have 3 books, and your publisher's going to say, thank you, you know. But I think that writing that first book and then figuring out who you are, I jumped all over the place and it didn't do me any good. And it didn't do, well, it depends on what you want as a writer. If you want to be a professional writer and be paid for your stories, it's not going to do you any good to have a cowboy and a witchcraft in a, you know, small town. You need to figure out who you are and what you want to write.
Okay, I think we are out of time.
Okay.
So I want to thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers at all levels, hosted by Emma Lee from Writers Inc. Books, assisted by Renee Black and Edie Runes. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Music is licensed through Audio Jungle, called Background Music Loop. Its creator is Alexander Polishchuk, known on Audio Jungle as Plastic 3. The music comes in different iterations. Show notes and resource links for this and other episodes can be found at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Write to us at winkbooks@aol.com when you have questions, comments, and speculations. We will try to answer you as quickly as possible. By the way, we will not mine your email address. That's rude. If you find value in our content, share with your writing friends or write a review. We're small beans here without the advertising budget of the big peeps, and you can make a difference. And whatever occurs, write on.